hey, I recorded myself teaching with my kids, but then it was like a 15-minute video, and I know you don't have time for that. So here's what I'm just going to show you. What I did with my kids is we use the snap cubes here to represent fractions. Now what I did with it, without it really being a actual problem, what we did, we talked about how we're just going to work on the whole regrouping. And so I wrote, like, for the snap cubes, this is 2 1/3. Now, some things I did is here's the 2 holes, here's the 1/3. I think it was easy for the kids to do the black as a different color because they were able to see that this 1 is still part of a third, which is actually part of the whole. So what we did from there, hey boys and girls, shh, problem solved, but I'm recording. So what we did is we just said, okay, 2/3 minus, we just knew it was some kind of bigger fraction, which is why we would have to regroup. And that's truly how I wrote it on the board. So again, because we just wanted to isolate the regrouping of 2 1/3 to be able to subtract that bigger fraction. So here's what we did. We showed it, and then we said how we would do that is we had to regroup, and I would always put a comparison problem here, like let's pretend it's 21 minus 17. It's the same kind of thing. When you cannot take 7 from 1, so you went over and you regroup or you trade it out. I use trade out a lot more than I use regrouping. It's just out of habit. Thanks, Greg Tang, with the trading out. So just like with this subtraction part, you'd have to trade out this 2 and make it a 1. Same here. I have to trade out one of these holes and regroup it with this 1/3. So I truly take one of these holes, which leaves them with still 1 hole. And then we physically take, and we space out our problem a little, our cubes a little bit, and we would take this 1 and we would trade it out to regroup with this fraction. And so when we did it visually, it was more like 2 1/3. This 2 becomes a 1, and then I'm going to, like I did with the cubes, bring this over here. Now, then we went back to the subtraction problem and said, okay, when you would trade out for one of the 10s, what operation did you do? And they said, oh, add, because this 1 plus 10, or 10 plus 1 becomes 11, really. Same here. So we said you would add what you traded out for to regroup this. And so visually they could see, okay, that is 1 2 3 4 thirds. Oh, so sorry, that's adding it together. That this 1 whole, because the denominator is 3, is 3 thirds. And then we still drew the big 1 like that. And then they were able to, okay, so now what do you have then? Well, we have 1 whole. And then we have still thirds as our denominator. How many parts? 1 2 3 4. 1 4/3. And we talked about how when you are regrouping, it's always going to be that, sorry, it's dismissal.
128 to the library, please. 425 and 128 to the library.
You're going to have that improper fraction so that you're able to do that, to find the difference with that bigger fraction. So that's what I did with my kids. The one thing that was cool with the visual with these is some of the kids argued, well, when it's 2 1/3 and I am regrouping, a lot of them said, okay, I know to take the 2 and make this a 1. It was cool to have the snap cubes, because then some of them said, oh, that should then be 1 2/3, which they were saying that when I still borrowed my whole, that I'm only going to get a piece of this. And we talked about, well, there's 1 2/3, but what happens to the rest of these pieces? And so we said, when you're borrowing 1 whole, it's the examples like the anchor chart that we have. That's the denominator is 3, so the numerator has to be 3. If the total parts was 4, then we know that the numerator has to be 4 for it to equal 1 whole. So it helped to do a subtraction problem so that they could compare how they do know how to subtract in the application to it with regrouping. And truly, we just worked on, okay, so we did this. Now show me 1 2/4 with snap cubes. And we'll pretend this is a bigger fraction, so we are just focused on regrouping. And so that seemed to help. Mind you, we've only been doing, we're doing problems now, but we're subtracting with like denominators. My hope is that tomorrow we get into actually subtracting with unlike. So wish us luck.